Good morning, afternoon, CAHSEE math class. We're going to continue going over more of these questions, so buckle up. I recommend that you grab a whiteboard, a marker, and a towel. They are up front. So do that orderly, please. Don't do it chaotically, one table at a time. And remember, the goal is to try to work these questions out yourself November 6th. You've got to know this. We have a CAHSEE examination in less than a month, and this material is on it. So pay attention, stay focused, listen. That means do not talk. Work these out. You have a sub, and I'm hoping that the video is paused to give you a chance to think about the question, and then, of course, watching me work it out will hopefully show you certain things that maybe you have forgotten, or maybe that you've never learned. So we're all about learning here, and when you learn something new, it's always fun and exciting. Okay? So with that said, I'm ready. I hope you are too. Again, you can use a whiteboard, dry erase marker, towel up front, or a separate piece of paper and a pen or pencil. Okay? So the first question here says, which number is equal to 2 to the negative 4th power? Now, I want to make a comment about this. The 2 is called a base. Negative 4 is an exponent. And when you have a negative exponent, the rule is this. I'm going to write the rule down. This is pre-algebra. The rule says that if you have a base raised to a negative power, then the answer is 1 over the power, but the exponent in that is now positive. So by taking the power and taking its reciprocal, let me write that word down, reciprocal, by taking the reciprocal of the power, the exponent becomes positive. So the negative sign is eliminated. Reciprocal means to flip your power. And so let's do that. So on the left-hand side here, we have the actual question. It is it's positive 2 raised to the negative 4th power. According to the rule here, you take the reciprocal, which means that it's going to equal 1 over 2 raised to the positive 4 power. So you see that trick there? Now, that's an important trick. Yeah, it's on the CAHSEE test, know it. So the 4th power, what that says is that you're taking the base, number 2, and multiplying 2 by itself 4 times. It is not 2 times 4. That's wrong. It is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So what's the product of that? Well, 2 times 2 is 4. And here you get 4 again. Now what's 4 times 4? 16. So your answer is going to be 1 over 16. Which is B. Or excuse me, C. There is no negative sign in the answer. Just be wrong. It's not 2 times 4, which is 8. That would be wrong. Right? And here, if you go 2 times 4 and get 8, that's wrong. So you have to know what you're doing to get this answer correct. Think about it. Moving on. Okay, another rule in pre-algebra was that if you take a power and divide it by another power, what you do with the exponents is subtract. And so this rule only applies when the bases are identical, and they are 10 and 10. They're identical. So we're going to subtract these powers. Now let me write the general rule. The general rule says that if you have x, we'll say to the a power, over x to the b power. What that means is that you're going to take the numerator and its power, x to the a, and you're going to subtract the denominator's exponent. And so that's the step there, guys. It's you subtract a minus b, or b from a. So let's try this. Let's write this down. Okay. According to what I just said, we're now going to subtract these exponents. One base, since they're common, right? Negative 2, subtract, so I'll put the subtraction sign because it's part of the rule, negative 4. You might remember that a negative and a negative next to each other become positive. So this becomes negative 2 plus 4. And negative 2 plus 4 is identical to saying 4 minus 2, which is just positive 2. And so it's 10 to the second power. They're not asking us to expand it and multiply. That would be your answer. You also know that 10 times 10 is 100, so if C was listed as 100, that would also be correct. Again, remembering these rules is important. We've got to practice more of these. Next question. Which of the following is equivalent to 7 to the negative 6th power times 7 to the 4th? The word equivalent means, hey, it's equal statement, means the same thing. It might be written in a different form, but they are still equal to each other. What's equal to each other? This question and its answer. So this is multiplying two powers together with the same base. So what is the product of two powers? And the rule is that if you have a power raised to a given exponent times the same power with the same base, that's what I mean by the same, it has the same base. And the rule is here is you're not dividing the powers, you're actually multiplying. And that's when you add the exponents. And so with that said, let's try it. According to this property, this law, negative 6 plus 4 is negative 2. So looking at my answers, it would be C. Again, the question itself is one where you just have to remember, are you adding or subtracting? And it's an issue of having that memory, that recall. So we're going to keep practicing and practicing and practicing for the next 3 weeks repeatedly, so that when we test November 6th on a Wednesday, you know it like the back of your hand. And you'll walk out of there with that smile across your face knowing that, hey, I passed. Continue. Oh, this looks familiar. Which fraction is equivalent to 5/6 plus 7/8? We've been working on some of these types of questions, and we all remember that when you add or subtract fractions, you have to have a common denominator. So I've got 6 and 8. Now we're looking for the lowest common denominator. So I start with the largest number, 8. And I think, okay, can I multiply a number by 6 to make it 8? No. So I take 8, multiply by 2, make it 16. So 8 times 2 is 16, but there isn't anything that I can make multiply 6 by to make it 18. Or 16, that is. Because 6 times 3 is 18. 6 times 2 is 12, so it's not 16. So let's try maybe 3. 8 times 3. That's 24. I'm getting on something there. I think this is it. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 3 is 18. But 6 times 4 is, 24. So the lowest common denominator here is 24. And now here's where we remember it. Okay. Multiply 8 by 3. That means you also have to multiply the numerator by 3. And 6, same idea. Multiply it by 4, but also multiply 5 by 4, right? And so rewriting this expression, we end up with 20 over 24 plus 21 over 24. Okay, let's add the numerators. You only add 20 and 21, not 24. So writing this out and showing what's going on, it's 20 plus 21 over one single denominator. That's common, 24. And looking at 20 and 21, that gives us 41 over 24. So they ask us to write this as a mixed number. No. The answer is here, and we win. It is fully reduced, too. So if you try to divide and reduce it, it's not going to happen. Another question on the CAHSEE test. Okay, I remember doing this one in class too. Let's see if you remember how to do it. So hopefully we can pause videos and give you an opportunity to work some of these out and then watch me work them out, okay? So reading the question, which of the following is a prime factored form of the lowest common denominator? So the denominator is what we're interested in, and it says we're going to factor the denominator, prime factored form. Remember what that was? It was the factor tree. And so we first had to find the lowest common denominator and then factor it. Right? So this is the first step. Find the lowest common denominator and then factor it. So we're looking at 10 and 15. Start with 15. 15 times 1 is 15. What do I multiply 10 by to make it 15? Can't. 10 times 1 is 10. 10 times 2 is 20. Not going to happen. Multiply 15 by 2. What do you get? Okay, 15 times 2 is 30. Well, I think 10 can be made 30 if I multiply by 3. So my lowest common denominator, my least common denominator, is 30. So now, knowing that, it says to factor that 30 in its prime factored form. 30, here it is, factor tree. Okay, we know it's 10 times 3, right? Okay, 3 is already factored, you can't go any farther. But 10 can be factored further. 2 times 5. So you want to identify. You want to identify 2, 5, and 3 as being the prime factored form of 30. Why? Because 2 times 3, 2 times 3 times 5 equals 30. 2 times 3 is 6. 5 is 30. It's called the prime factored form of 30. So the answer would be B. Now those of you who are thinking, wow, I don't want to do this. This is hard work. Outside my room, about 9:18 in the evening, on a Monday night, the band is walking up the walkway here. They practice late. And they do this daily, working hard to perform. So I think we can do our part and work hard during class time and perform November 6th by scoring a 350 or better. Moving on. Okay, great question. What is 3/4 minus 1/6? Again, pause the video. Attempt this yourself. And of course, watch me work this out. Since we're subtracting, I know and you know that we have to have a common denominator. So start with the largest number, 6, and ask yourself, 6 times 1 is 6. What do I multiply 4 by to make it 6? And you just can't do it. 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8. Now ask yourself, what's 6 times 2? That's 12. So that's going to be my least common denominator. 4 times 3 is also 12, so I found it. And so, multiply 6 by 2, 1 by 2, multiply 4 by 3, and 3 by 3. Rewriting this, we end up with 9 over 12 minus 2 over 12. And there it is. We've got the common denominator. So I know that my answer is going to have one single denominator of 12. And I'm going to subtract the numerator, 9, and 2. 9 minus 2 is 7 over 12. That is the solution. That's your C. It's reduced, by the way. I hope this is making sense. It's becoming clearer and clearer every day as we do more and more of these questions. (29) Another pre-algebra type question. Okay, so this question is, it's called a power raised to a power. And the rule is that when you have a power raised to another power, you multiply them. You only have one base, 3. So if I was to write that out, it would be x raised to the a power, and that would be raised to the b power. Powers are separated by parentheses, a grouping symbol. And so we end up with x raised to the a times b. That's the product of the exponents. So knowing that, I can look at this expression and I now know that I'm going to multiply 8 and 2. And 8 times 2 is 16. And this becomes the answer. So many of these questions just involve you recognizing the question and then having that recall. Saying, oh yeah, power to a power. Oh, I multiply those. Oh yeah. If it's 2 powers that are being divided, I subtract the exponents. Oh yeah, if it's 2 powers that are being multiplied, I add the exponents. See, simple addition and subtraction, and sometimes multiplication. You find this answer. That much closer to getting that score of 350 or better. Very nice. All right, next question. Maybe pause the video and see if you remember what to do. We've seen a question like this before. Pausing the video wouldn't be a bad idea. Those drums sound good. I don't know if you can hear them, but I can. So the rule here is that if you have the same powers, same base, you add the exponents. 3 plus 2 is 5. So if you make that mistake and multiply these, you're going to think it's 6. Not so. Leave the base alone too. 4 and 4, don't multiply those to get 16. Still 4. Alrighty. So when you look at this, think about what's going on here. I want you to think. Get that little thought bubble going here. Okay, think, what's going on? Well, look at the answers. 32, 48, 144, 256. They don't look like any of the other answers. Look, prior. See that? 4 to the 5th, 4 to the 6th, 16 to the 5th. We had to use these properties. This is different. And you'll notice, too, that it's written different. 6 to the 2nd power times 2 to the 2nd power. 6 and 2 are different. The bases aren't the same, so we can't use those properties. What you can do is just expand and multiply and end up with a solution here. Remember, calculators are not allowed on the CAHSEE test unless you have a document that allows you to use a calculator. For those of you who do, you know what I'm talking about. So, let's work it out. Remember, an exponent tells the base to multiply itself a number of times. In this case, 2. So this would be, written out, it would be 6 times 6 times 2 to the 2nd would be 2 times 2. And so that's what we're multiplying by. So I'm just going to get clever here because it's easier for me to do this. But what's 6 times 2? It's 12. And what's over here? 6 times 2? It's 12. And 12 times 12 is 144. So yeah, you can multiply in any order you want. I chose the inside and the outside. It ended up at 144. If you chose the other method, excuse me, where you went 6 times 6 first and got 36, and 2 times 2 is 4, you still see that 36 times 4 is 144. Continuing. Just about done with the video. What is the value of this expression? Again, got numerical answer. We also have shortcuts. And what I noticed is that this expression has powers with the same base so that we can add the exponent. And so 2 to the 6th times 2 to the 4th is 2, 6 plus 4, which is 10. Now you're right. We're dividing. And so I know we added here in the numerator. That's okay. We just simplified the numerator first. And so now the rule says that if you have powers that are being divided, take the exponents and subtract them. And 10 minus 5 is 5. I still don't see that answer anywhere. Well, that's because 2 to the 5th, when you expand it, is and 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 2 is 4 times 2. And we have 16 times 2. And 16 times 2 is 32. Again, just taking your time, thinking about the math, having that recall is huge. Final question. The square root of 150 is between what two numbers? This is an algebra question, pre-algebra type question, where square roots, they're called the inverse of the second power. They undo the second power. And so, what we're asking here is, and again, I've seen this on the CAHSEE test almost every year. What is this answer? Well, it's going to be a decimal of some sort. If you have a calculator and you were to work that out, you'd get a decimal approximation. So, if I loaded up my calculator here, watch. See that right there? I don't know if it shows up on the screen. It might not. But this calculator, it would say that, let's see if I can go to scientific here. So the square root of 150 says it's about 12.24. 12.25. So this is about 12.25. That's called a decimal approximation using a calculator. But that's not what we're going to do when we're taking the CAHSEE test. We don't have calculators. And so how do you solve this answer? Well, here's what you do. You look at 150 and you look at numbers that are smaller than 150, like 144. Write that above it. Or maybe below it since it's smaller. And another number above it, like 169. And the reason why I wrote those is because I know that 12 times 12 is 144, so the square root of 144 must be 12. I also know that 13 times 13 is 169, so the square root of 169 is 13. And so 150 must be between these two answers, 12 and 13, which is C. And it is, if you think about it, because I worked it out with the calculator. 150, we said the answer was what? Approximately 12.25. And there it is. So the answer is between 12 and 13. And we used this method of mental math, choosing two square numbers to find what the smallest value and largest value is, and the answer being between those. Now, that takes us to the end of this show. Close to 30 minutes of video time. I'm not sure if you got to see it all by stopping and working them out. But here's what I do know. This test is important. I want you to succeed. And I really want you to focus these last 3 weeks before testing. Okay? And also, remember, like I always say, study hard and learn a lot. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.